Hello there, Server from 17 once again. This is my Bioshock Survivor difficulty Brass Balls video walkthrough. This is for Frolic, and it is the first of two installments that are going to be dealing with the wonderful, eccentric Sander Cohen. And there's a lovely little tease at the beginning of this mission, where they give you the impression you're going to go straight to the next bathysphere and get on with the game. And then, of course, the intrepid artist decides that he wants us to be his latest specimen, and we have to go and do some rather interesting things in Fort Frolic, which I would love to tell you we're going to redefine the wheel and make the game, you know, just as great as it could have been, but unfortunately it turns into another fetch quest, and this time we're fetching photographs of dead people, which, you know, is kind of macabre, but is definitely in Sander Cohen's playbook. So, at the beginning here, you're going to be faced with a ton of spider splicers and a wonderful intricate webwork of electric bolt traps. And this might be a great indication of a tool we're going to be picking up in this mission. So I like to use the grenade launcher on the spider splicers, merely because it does good damage, it's got good spread, and they're a rather evasive enemy. So, once the first two have fallen, the next two will come towards this pretty nice looking ceiling, and then just wait for them to cluster, and then hopefully hit them with another grenade. If it doesn't work as well as you want, you can wait for them to drop down, because the one flaw with the logic of all spider splicers is if they're on the roof, they have to come down. And they will come down in a rather arbitrary process of dropping and then attacking you, so you can just wait for that opportune moment for them to land. And you see, she has to recover after the fall, or she can't do what she needs to do, so we can use that as an opportunity to kill her in the face. But this is where your arsenal is essentially going to be complete, in my opinion, because at the moment we've got a tool for most situations, but we don't have a good complementary set of tools for any kind of specific thing. And once you get the crossbow, it really does complete the sequence of what you need to use to win in this game. And I didn't realise you got it this late. And that leads me to an aspect of old school first-person shooter design that I really miss nowadays, and that is the idea of being able to find the secrets that get you an advantage early on. In this game, there are obviously caches and areas and places where you can go, and you can get extra ammunition, you can get some pretty rare ammo types, but you can't really get anything that traditionally you shouldn't have. And I really like that design in things like Duke Nukem and the likes. As I break this window, every time you break this window, it sets an alarm off. I'm doing this to get the robots so that I've got a nice little entourage of killing machines. It's once again, you have to wait, you know, 60 seconds regardless, so it's not the swiftest way of doing this, but it definitely gets you the tools for the job. And there doesn't seem to be a definitive direction that these robots come from. They either come from the right or they come from the left, so keep your head on a swivel, try not to get pegged too much by them. They're a bit of a nightmare sometimes, and then of course if you can trigger Chameleon you'll have almost complete immunity. Bear in mind guys, the Chameleon doesn't con the splicers, cons the robots, but the splicers will cotton onto where you are, so if they get too close you really want to deal with them. But now that we're about to get the crossbow, Chameleon and the crossbow complement each other wonderfully, because the splicers will walk around without any real knowledge of where you are, and the moment they stop, if you've been tracking them with your crossbow, you can put one in their head and kill them instantly, and it works on almost every kind of splicer. Even the leadheads, who are incredibly tough, will take a massive pounding from the crossbow on the face. And it's because the game has a damage modifier on the head, which is considerably higher than the body, and I like that. It really, really helps in a lot of situations. But in those games like Doom and Quake and those older games, you could find the best gun in the game quite early, or the better guns in the game, just by knowing where the intricate secrets were. And there were players that went through those games and never found those secrets because they were quite taxing. But if you did, you were rewarded with something that you really shouldn't have, and you had this resource that wasn't infinite, but it was enough that you could pick certain circumstances where you knew it would save you. And the idea of being able to get weapons out of sequence is something that I find really appealing. But it has to have some kind of skill dependency to it, because we don't want everybody to do this, because then what the hell's the point? You might as well just call it the path of the game. It has to be something that not a lot of people do, and something that can be learned but isn't necessarily the most obvious thing. And that way you get rewarded with great things. But on this particular sequence, we have to go up an elevator. But I like to come into Cohen's room. I do it because there's stuff in it, and it's because it's the way I've always done it. But when you come down here, once you go towards, I believe it is the elevator, and you trigger it, it's going to trigger a bunch of thuggish splices to spawn behind us. And depending on your robots will depend on how effective this moment is. I actually got into an awkward moment on this, and I had to re-record it again. Because I ended up getting a bunch of alarms on me, and wasting ammunition I didn't want to waste, so I loaded the game thinking, you know, I can just redo this, it'll be nice and quick, and I'd not saved for 40 minutes. And I'm not usually much of a stickler when it comes to getting really angry at, you know, my inability to save and things, but it's funny, isn't it? You know, when you're given the option to save, when you forget to do it, you feel like you've robbed yourself. You know, it's one of those weird things, like when you bite the inside of your cheek, or if you've ever swung anything, and it's come round and hit you, because you weren't paying attention or you were a little bit overzealous. It's one of those moments where you're like, how can I be so stupid? Like the other day I kicked my PS3 because it's on the floor. I was just walking past it. It's been there for like a year, and you would think that I would know that it was there, and I would have understood that it was there, and I wouldn't have come into conflict with it, but for whatever reason I ended up tripping up over it, and I cut my foot. And it's that thing where you're like, wow, I haven't cut myself in ages. You know, the only times you cut yourself as you get older, unless you're somebody who fights a lot or gets into bad situations or does a very physical job, at times like when you're shaving or something. So it was one of those weird things of like, wow, I've cut myself. And then I think back to when I was younger and I used to have bruises all on my legs. It's like, how the hell did we get those bruises? Ridiculous. We used to look like abused wives, but it was just part of playing out. But now that we've taken the first picture of a corpse, Sander's going to get the bug of this capturing the final moments of his subjects, his artists, and now we're going to have to find some more of them, which is cue the end of the waypoint, which I find to be quite strange, and a sequence of people you have to assassinate, and each of these people will be a standard splicer, but they don't have standard splicer life. So you will bump into splicers who take a pounding. And the reason is they are technically a boss cast splicer, I think, and that's why they can take so much damage. So all we're going to be going is going around Fort Frolic and killing these unique splicers, taking photographs of them, and then putting them into the magnum opus of Sander Cohen. Once you've put all the photographs there, Sander's going to have a bit of a hissy fit, and then he's going to give us the keys to get out of Fort Frolic, and then you're done with the zone. But this is a zone that's got a lot of cool things to see, so it's going to be about an hour's worth of me walking around it, and you're also going to be introduced to the upgrade on the bouncers, which they're not easy. When you pick up this tonic, by the way, it's going to spawn a Houdini splicer. You don't have to fight him. He's very evasive. He goes on all the galleries and the balconies, and I threw a body at him, it didn't hit him, and that's about as much as I wanted to mess, because without a guaranteed way of dealing immediate damage to him, I just wasn't interested, and he got a couple of quick hits on me. I took my lumps, and then I decided to get out of there. And you'll notice, before I came into this room, I turned off my robots, and I'm also going up the elevator rather than just coming through the doorway. The reason I did this is there's a wonderful ambush waiting for you with 2 turrets, and on my first run through, they killed my my automatic buddies here, and that was one of the reasons that I respawned as well, because it just wasn't what I wanted to happen, and I'd lost more footage than I realised. But if you come down here, you'll see the masterpiece, and then you have to wait for Sander to finish externalising what this is all about, and then he's going to give us our first gift. And I really do like the aesthetic of this area. I love the bunny ears. I love the papier-mâché or whatever it is that the people have been, you know, immortalised in. There's a definite... It gives me Condemned vibes, if you've ever played Condemned. There's just a wonderful creepiness to the idea of people cast in plaster. And, you know, you don't know whether or not it's a sculpture or a person lying in wait to ambush you, which I do think is cool. But here are our targets. We have Hector Rodriguez, we have the dude it just said, Silas Cobb, and a few others. But there are 3. There are 3 that we have to do. And I think 2 of them involve going through the frozen area, and it took me a while to figure that out. I didn't realise the frozen area led to another atrium that led to another area, so I ended up going around this first area quite a lot, without realising that I was doing it wrong, and It must be said, you know the map on this game? It's some Mickey Mouse bullshit. There's so many pictures, there's so many icons, there's so much colour, there's so many twisty-turny, where's Wally, or Waldo if you're American, labyrinthine design to the map. It really isn't helpful. It's kind of annoying. And I don't understand why it's designed in the way it is. It's just... It looks like a genius designed it, but only he understands it. And you just look at it and you see all these pictures and it's just like, where the fuck do I go? You know, it's one of those... It's a map that you can definitely understand it and recognise everything once you understand what everything means. But it isn't a map that you look at immediately and you go, oh yeah, that's where I am and that's where I need to be. Because it's kind of a troll. It really is. It's like a game of Pictionary, rather than being a good utility. And I just seen that then with Incinerate. I didn't realise it was a reference to the Samuel Jackson quote, which is a nice touch. But you'll notice here there is a guy taunting us. This is the first of our targets, and I remember this area fondly because you can kill him before he attacks you. That is the only reason I put Incinerate on as well. You'll notice I've never really swapped plasmids on this entire game because Electroshock and Telekinesis are all I'll ever really need. There's a couple of fancy ones later on that I wanted to play with, but they didn't change my life, so I just generally don't even mess. But there's a lot of people here who are frozen, so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to get rid of them. And the crossbow does incredible damage to the face, and of course anything that survives the crossbow is going to be facing our buddies here. Should have taken pictures of her, she was a Houdini. But I didn't, which is to my folly. But you will end up killing the target without realising that you've killed him. This also happens too. You have these interesting frozen moments where he mocks you and he taunts you about where he's going to leave you and things. Because he's a Houdini splicer as well. It's interesting, isn't it, that Sander's a Houdini splicer, this guy's a Houdini splicer. I think one of them is a Nitro splicer, and the last guy might be a Leadhead, something like that. There's a hefty mix of different ones. It's weird too. How many splicings do you think you have to have before you get spliced? You know, before you become technically a splicer? Is it the difference between somebody who has a coffee occasionally and somebody who needs a coffee to get up in the morning? I'm not too sure. But do they realise they've gone too far? Or is it one of those things where you never do? You just chase the dragon and never catch it? Because it must get frustrating to know that you're never going to catch it. You know, there is no catching it. It's... So the guy to the left down there, that's the boss, you see him? You can also see that the frost has had a little damage on it, which I think is a bit of a signifier that he's been around longer than everybody else. And I do like how you can get your bolts back. You can upgrade the crossbow so that it gives the bolts back regularly, which I think is a great tool. Once you get this weapon, this is the weapon that's going to lead you through most of the game. If this was on hard difficulty, the crossbow would be enough to deal with almost every situation. And I realised how powerful it was, but I didn't realise just how powerful it was until I watched Darkside Phil play hard, and I played this. Because I was playing and recording this while I was watching him play hard, and before my experience with this, all I knew was hard on this game. So to see the contrast, I don't feel like the contrast is that big, but when I watched it to see the difference between what I was doing and what he was doing, the contrast is actually stronger than you think. It's not going to give you the most trouble, Survivor, but it is definitely a step up in a lot of areas, and it becomes very apparent when you watch somebody use that crossbow on the later levels of the game, because he was doing things I just couldn't do, and it was nothing to do with what he was doing, which is 100% the system. And the crossbow is just so goddamn good. It's really, really good, and it's a tool that's going to be your backup, but there is an issue with it. It is a weapon that is quite difficult to aim. It's easier to aim now thanks to the egregious over-aiming of the auto-aim, but it's not going to be one of those weapons where you're immediately going to have the same kind of resonance that you would have if you had something like the shotgun, because the shotgun has got good spread, and it enables you to fire quite quickly. Ooh, that could have been great. A whole bunch of splices together there in a well-placed grenade, but I didn't quite get them early enough, so somebody got away. And I can't see where he is. Oh, he's over there. Subject research complete. Is he just a thuggish? I think he is. Goes for the big swing and then he gets brutalized. Ooh, poor dude. Ooh, is that a Big Daddy fighting a splicer? I believe it is. Let's steal some of those points. Get the research done. And this is our first elite bouncer. So you might wonder, well, what's the difference between the normal bouncer and the elite bouncer? I don't entirely know. I haven't checked the wikis or anything if there is any kind of information for that, but I assume, aside from his fashion statement of adding the red trim, that he has increased life and potentially increased damage, but I don't know. I just feel like he's just a little bit more buff, which is the easiest way to describe it. You have to save before you fight this dude, because he killed me so many times. It's not even funny. Every single Big Daddy in this area is an elite bouncer, and out of all the Big Daddy fights in the game, these are the ones where I died a few times before I got the one I wanted. And at first it was finding a way of dealing good damage to them. Then secondly, it was getting the loop to pay dividends, because I have a stun loop against bouncers, which I'm going to be showing you in this video. But it's entirely indicative of whether or not you can make sure your crossbow and your shotgun have ammo in them. And this dude recovers so quickly that keeping ammunition in those guns when you're doing what I'm about to show you, which I probably won't do it for this first one, it is not the easiest thing. Because this guy's going to rush you, and he's going to be on you all the time, and if you do not keep something to stun him and something to damage him in the chamber, you're going to spend a long time reloading. And you're going to feel every single reload against the elite bouncers, because they move very fast. But for this first dude, I'm going to set up a big trap on this staircase. He's going to chase me up here, because wherever I stand, he's going to want to be. And then I'm going to fall down, and I'm hopefully going to get him caught, and then it's going to get messy. But until it gets messy, I'm going to hit him with a lot of quick damage, throw bodies at him, whatever I can do. And I'm going to hope that my turret puts in the work here, because I've got two of them, and he kills them way quicker than you think he would. Look at, you see that? He dash punched it with the drill. He's stuck, so let's take advantage of this. For some reason, I'm not cancelling the ending recovery of this weapon. Don't know why. It's not much quicker than the standard shooting, but it's quicker. Like, look at the crossbow. This is the crossbow cancelling that you can do. There's me not taking the risk of him hitting me on the balustrade or the banister. And there's him stunning the ground so I can't move. And I'm hoping to use the pillar. Here's him clipping like a beast because he's got a very big character model. There's the dash. Watch out for the dash. You can sidestep it. There's him doing some weird stutter step like it's Resident Evil Remake stairs. And now I'm going to put this mall directory between me and him and hopefully chain him with Electric Book, because Electric Book is a guaranteed stun. I'm not a big fan of the range that I'm shooting him from here, but it still gets the job done. And there he goes. So it was relatively clean, but it could have gone wrong in so many ways. And it's all because if he gets close to you and he does that quick swipe, you're dead. And it's weird because all the power moves don't kill you instantly, but that swipe, you're gone. There's no surviving it. I've never survived it. But there she goes. There's that extra Adam. The shotgun really came through for us. Make sure you reload everything to full capacity that you used against him. Swap your ammo types if you don't have anything left. And now we can continue onwards to the next target. There's a chance that I might be intentionally getting spotted by this camera so I can have some buddies, because I really didn't like that bouncer fight at the time. I was a little disconcerted that he took that much damage. Because in my recollection of Bioshock, of course, as I mentioned earlier, it's all from the hard difficulty, so I don't remember struggling with any Big Daddies except for the first one. Every Big Daddy after that went down really smooth, especially when you get the crossbow, because the crossbow reload cancelling is too quick. It puts on him so much damage he can't really recover. But Survivor, when it tweaks those modifiers, it becomes a different game. And I really like that, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of modifier escalation. I think there are more graceful and interesting ways to amend difficulty. And I don't think it necessarily has to be buff everything and nerf you. I think we get a little bit... We rest and relax on our laurels and we don't push different design aspects. I love games that take chances with interesting things. I really think it could have been interesting if they could have changed the way certain things behave. Because there's a lot of stuff in Bioshock that's kind of guaranteed. And they could have mixed it up by changing how it worked. And it could have been a lot of things. It doesn't have to just be damage and health. But it often is, a lot of the times. You know, they could have made it so that the vending machines had more chance or a more likelihood of dropping bombs to trap you and things and to troll you. And they could have changed the way that the money works. And They could have made it so that Big Daddies are hostile all the time. So if you're even remotely close to them, they aggro. Or they could have increased the aggro range of them. You know, there's a lot of things they could have done to tweak and subtly adjust things. They could have really made the ammo sparse so that you had to make every bullet count, but they could have increased the damage it did on enemies to give you that real survivor feeling. They could have made it so that there is no med packs in the game. All there is food, but there's more food. And when enemies die, they drop food. So you literally had to survive and hoard and find things to eat to keep yourself alive. You didn't have the med packs to fall back on. They could have done a whole host of different things, and it would have made the game a completely different experience. You know, they could have broken all the Gatherer's Gardens, so they forced you to do a no Adam run of the game. Like, how many times have you done that? Where you didn't upgrade your plasmids, and you didn't have a million slots, and you didn't have all the tonics and things. Now, that would have been really, really interesting. And I like games that put these things in and reward you for doing them. Because you'll notice a lot of community of gamers, they'll find a game that they like, and then they'll play it until they've conquered it, and there's nothing left to achieve. So they'll create these really arbitrary things to do in the game just to give them that buzz again of being unaware of if they can do it. And they give them names, and there aren't many games that fully come through with, you know, appreciating what the community does with their game. Like, I always kind of resented the fact that God of War never had a trophy for doing a no upgrade run, or doing a pain run, or something like that. And I appreciate that there's not a lot of people that can do them because they're very challenging in the grand scheme of things, and God of War is looked up as being a quite challenging game. But you have to know these devs have watched these videos of like the old Shinobi days where he was doing things in God of War that there was only a few people who even dared, you know, way before it became popular to do that. And it's been all over the internet now. So if you search for this stuff, you can find really impressive videos. And it would be nice if the people who made the game just did a nice little nod to the people who love their game. Look at that. That's a great trap, that one. Hook, line, sinker. My turret's going to kill this before I even get a chance to hack it, which is disappointing. And I don't think you can turn these ones on and off to get their life back, which is unfortunate. That's the only problem with having the security bots, the clipping and the fact that they will gangbang turrets that you potentially could have used. But there's me doing another wonderful job of fucking up the hacks. It's about this point where the hacks started to do that bullshit where you have the time it takes for the liquid to run into the first vial to find an appropriate piece to actually solve the puzzle, and if you go the wrong way, you've fucked it. And I really don't like those hacks. I think they're unfair, because by the time you've flipped a few pieces, it's already running and you've already failed. It feels really, really, really bullshit at times. And then the ones where they don't give you enough pieces to solve it, which is incredibly rare, but it does happen. There are moments where you don't have the pieces to solve the puzzle, and unless you've specced into hacking to alleviate some of those risks, you can have a tough time with it, which is super annoying. But back to what we were saying, that's what I really liked about God Hand, the fact that they put something in there to reward players that did something stupid. And you might wonder what the Kick Me sign run is, where people do it and you see the sign on their back and you see how it's reflected in game, and not a lot of people understand what it actually does. When you beat the game like that, you get something for doing it. It's just a soundtrack. You unlock a treasure chest that has a CD in it, which is, I think it's like the CDC or something. But they gave you something for doing something that nobody would have wanted to really do, because it's one of those ridiculous things. People do Kick Me sign as a challenge to show that, you know, they've got to a level on God Hand that not many have ever achieved. And it's a cool thing to do because it's very challenging, and it's one of those experiences that really does make it different to anything else you can do. It's like doing a no UT run on Ninja Gaiden, or doing something along the lines of a no upgrade run on Devil May Cry. Which, if you've ever seen those no upgrade best rank runs on Devil May Cry 3, that's some of the sickest shit I've ever seen, dude. Really, really ridiculous. And I always come back to Devil May Cry 3 because it's kind of my white whale. I have these wonders these days that, like, back when I was trying to SS rank Dante Must Die on that game, was it because I was kind of a scrub and I wasn't as good as I thought I was that I couldn't do it? Or is it really that hard? And it's been a long time now since I tried to do that, and I always get those moments of, should I try again? Like, do I have what it takes now and I just didn't then? I don't know. And I really don't think that I can get as good as I was, because I was in a really good place with that game back in the day, and I still couldn't do it because it was so hard. Oh, there's a turret. And I always have those moments where it's like, shall I do it? But I realise just how much it takes, and it takes so much out of you. Like, it's not like doing just a single run. That I have it on its own island of its own thing. Like, beating Dante Must Die on Devil May Cry 3 is ridiculous to begin with, but doing it without taking damage while adhering to all those arbitrary scores, and it's not like Fall Guys where you get the orbs without trying. You know, everything on that game to get the S is trying. Like, you have to try for most of the times. You have to try to get certain orbs. There are moments where you will have to farm orbs to get the orb requirements, because unless you're getting super stylish Showtime, you know, combos and finishers, you're not getting the orbs you need to do it. And every single fight is risking taking a hit. And if you take a hit, it is a full reset. It's not a restart checkpoint, it's a reset. And, like, if there were checkpoints, I would have done it. There's no two ways about it. But there aren't. So when I look at it, I always look at Devil May Cry 1. Because Devil May Cry 1, the levels are like 2 to 3 minutes long. And you don't have to take no damage. And it makes the scoring so much more fun. But that third game was literally designed by masochists. By absolute masochists who realised that the second game had just totally let down the people who wanted an experience that was incredibly difficult, and it took the ultimate mastery. But I just think they went too far, and as much as there's a part of me that's like, I think I can do it, there's also a part of me that's like, I don't like the person I need to become to do it. Because it's one of those things, you know, it must be what it's like when you start training for a triathlon and you realise just how much pain you're going to have to put yourself through. And I know comparing a video game to a massively physical experience is something that a lot of people will malign and not think is comparable at all, but I think it is. Because unless you know the time and the effort it takes to do that, you don't know. And I'm sounding a lot like Tom Cruise, even though I really do think that fucking speech is hilarious. But it's really true. There are few games that I look at with the same kind of respect as I do that game. There just are. Like, when I see people doing crazy things on Devil May Cry 4, it's always the same response from me. It's always like, oh, that's awesome. But it's Devil May Cry 4. I love that. That's my favourite shot of the video. I'm afraid you can't do that. Wrong. Boom. Good night. Like, Devil May Cry 3 it's on like a pedestal of its own thing. And I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever do that. I really don't. I know I'll do certain things, but that's one of those things that I just don't know if I've got it in me. Because you have to want it. You really do. You know, oh, some of the levels on it, they're like a horror story. They really are. You know, getting to Beowulf is a nightmare, and then no damaging Beowulf is a nightmare. And you can be super cheap too. You can spiral cancel. You can try the Royal Guard. You can try the jump cancelled, you know, Agni and Rudra cross attacks, aerial crosses on his eye. You can do all those things and it's still a fucking nightmare. One cage and it's like 7 minutes worth of reset. Oh, I can't do it. There's some things that are just not meant to be, I think, and that's one of them. But there are a couple of things that I hunger for. Games that have beat me, games that I haven't beaten, that I get itches to go back and be like, I think I should do this. And at the moment I'm limited by my choices of them, because there's only certain ones at the moment that still exist, because for most of them I've gone in there and I've done it. The most recent one was God Hand. God Hand bullied me a lot, and I wanted to get better, and I got better, which is awesome. But now, you know, it's waiting for that next eventful Ahab moment where you're like, I need to beat this to prove I can. And I don't know if we're going to get games like that give me that motivation. I wonder if I'm going to look back more and more and more. Because for the most, I do try to look forward and focus on the new stuff. It's just a lot of the new stuff is very simple. Like, even this, You know, Bioshock is a kind of an old game, so the difficulty on this is way higher than your standard difficulties these days. And as much as I would like to say that the new Call of Duty is going to have realistic mode, I don't think Infinite Warfare will, because I think that that's what the Black Ops team did. And I don't think Modern Warfare Remastered will have it either. But Modern Warfare, now that is something else. Modern Warfare on Veteran is actually very difficult. So it'll be interesting to see if they've tweaked that. Because if I play that fucking game and I don't get instantly killed when I bob out of cover, I'm going to be mad. Because I get a feeling they're going to tweak it, you know, and they're going to make it modern and they're going to make it easy. And if they do, it's going to be a joke. Like, I haven't done Mile High Club in years. That might be something worth doing. Because I don't care if you think it's easy. That is not easy, dude. That is a really, really tricky mission. Because it's just 2 minutes of hell. Or 3 minutes of hell, or whatever it is. And it's almost not even about you. As long as you're flashing in the right places and you're pushing forward and putting targets down, like, it's less to do with you and more to do with the game. And that's why it's so difficult, because you die in a second, and there's 50 dudes on that plane. There's so many dudes. And they're all just waiting for you to make a mistake, or to recover from a flash, or for you to go into the wrong piece of cover. That is such a scary sequence. But it's fun, you know, because it is really challenging. But like Gears we're on the eve of Gears right now. And I'm really excited for it. But I don't think Gears is going to be as hard as what Gears of War 3 was. Because Gears of War 3 was really tricky in a lot of zones. But I get the feeling that the new one won't be. Because Judgment wasn't as difficult as 3. It was nowhere near as difficult. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's worrying about the last boss. Because Gears always seems to have a shitty last boss. A last boss that's not very fun and can be very hard. Except for 2, of course, which just didn't have anything. But Ram can be a nightmare until you realise a few tricks against him. And you get that super good run of actives and headshots and stuff. Or if you use the shotgun and you get him stuck on that rock. Because the shotgun absolutely brutalises Ram. Couple of grenades, couple of shotguns, you can kill him in about 10 seconds. It's hilarious. I didn't realise how powerful it was until I saw a speedrunner did it and I did it myself. And I was like, Jesus Christ. The fights I've had against that boss, and then I watched the speedrunner do it, and I'm like, I really should have been doing what this dude's been doing. As I put myself in a real bad spot here because of an alarm. So be careful, guys. It can kick off really quickly. But we've got plenty of life, plenty of resources, and as you've noticed, I'm just cruising around exploring. I'm taking my time, I'm finding things, I'm double checking. I'm not entirely sure what I'm meant to do because I can't remember where these people are, so I just look to the areas that I've not been in, and then I go back to those. And you'll notice it all says Poseidon and Frozen Tunnel, which means you have to go through the icy area, and that's the mistake that I was making. But on the one hand, I want Gears of War 4 to be really, really, really challenging so that people will need a walkthrough for it, and then the walkthrough has a good chance of being successful. But at the same time, I just don't think it will be, and I'm hoping that the last boss is hard for a good reason. Like, I didn't like Ram because if Dom goes down, what do you do? There were times when Ram starts getting close to you, and the second you get out of cover, you are instantly killed. And you just couldn't get away from him. You couldn't get into safety. The Krill'd get you. He'd shoot you with that mulcher. Like, it was just bad news. And then on the third game, of course, Mira was just a nightmare because it was too much all the time and way too long. And then, of course, on Judgment, there was that dude. And the only hard part about the final dude on Judgment was the torque bow guys who had wicked aim and would tag you without you realising they were there. And it was quite a long fight too, with a lot of people who could end it very quickly. So, there's trepidation, but there's excitement. Thank you for watching. You take care now.